Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you for joining me poolside for Rise of Mordor replay. Today I have a 3 versus 3, of course, being done on Rise of Mordor. We're going to be playing with the Rise of Mordor Battle Overhaul mod. Now, before we get into the army comps and things like that, I want to give a big thank you to Blood Magpie, one of the developers working on the mod. He actually delayed updating the mod so that I could get this replay battle out to you guys today. So a big thank you to him. I really appreciate you working with my busy schedule. But in any case, let's take a look at the army comps, and then we can get into the replay itself. I hope you guys enjoy it. The first army we're going to take a look at today is the Forces of Isengard. I'm not too sure who's commanding them. We'll see at the end of the video. But in any case, they have brought 3 units here of Dunlending Horse Raiders. A lower tier mid-range skirmish cavalry, really useful against heavier cavalry that are slower than they are. 3 units of White Hand Stormers, a bunch of Uruk-hai archers. Let's take a look at some of these models. I believe the Stormers are from Blood Magpie's mod. I could be wrong about that, but they definitely used a lot of the assets that the Rise of Mordor team made, which are beautiful. Look at this. The amount of work and detail that's gone into this mod is absolutely astounding, and I'm really happy to see it evolve and become available to everybody. Got some more Uruk-hai archers here. Yet more White Hand Stormers. Uruk-hai infantry, who I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of, but let's get a nice little close-up here. Let's get a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Oh, I want to see the weird thing they do with their face if you angle the camera. Ugh. Yeah, I'm getting the stink eye from that Uruk-hai infantry. I got some more Uruk-hai archers, some White Hand Guardians, which I think are like the White Hand Stormers in the sense that they've got massive shield values, a lot of armor, but these guys are armed with spears. More Uruk-hai infantry, some half-orc axes out in front who are sexy, 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 just as you remember them from the movies. And some more White Hand Guardians in behind the rest of the infantry as well, some more Uruk-hai infantry, and get more half-orc axes and some Uruk-hai archers. So a lot of lighter Uruk-hai infantry on the field. They're going to be supporting a heavier core of White Hand Stormer units. But in any case, move on now to Harad, who has brought some Harad-Waith Warlords. I believe they have 3 units of Harad-Waith Warlords. 1 unit of the Southron Cavalry, who wear their massive lances on their back. I feel like that would be a little bit ungainly to try and ride around like that, make it a little bit top-heavy, and I think it would probably flop all over the place. But in any case, I won't judge. Umbar Enforcers, which are interesting. They look kind of like the Telmarines from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But they are a War Dog unit, and they can release those War Dogs and be pretty nasty. And I'm hoping that we see more Umbar units as a sub-faction from Harad a little bit later. Some Spears of the Serpent. So this is kind of like Serpent Guard, using some of the assets from 1212, which is a game that I know Blood Magpie likes to play a lot. Got some, I think these are like Harad-Waith infantry. They're crazy looking. Crocodile helmets. I love it. That's so cool. Yeah, Harad-Waith champions. That's what they're called. Swords of the Serpent. The kind of your generic Serpent Guard unit. And then we got some Harad-Waith Warlords. Yet more Warlords over here. From what I understand, they're shock cavalry, but they're also really nasty in melee as well. So not a unit that you want to play around with. Out in front, a ton of Harad-Waith Bowmen. Harad-Waith Bowmen for days. And they are a lighter bow unit, just really all about that numbers, all about the volume of fire. They fall apart pretty quickly, as you would expect from a unit that's practically naked in the face of any kind of concerted arrow fire. But I think that does... No, we actually got some Harad Swordsmen here, who are unshielded but useful because they have a little bit higher morale, and they have a thrown javelin weapon, which makes them really effective, very cost-effective shock troops. Well, that does it for most of their teams. So let's move on now to the third and final blue team army. We have the Dragonskin Regiment of the Easterlings of Rhûn. There's a lot of Dragonskin here, a lot of really heavy runic infantry. 1, 2, 3, 4 Dragonskin, backed up, I believe, 4 units of Dragon's Fire heavy bow infantry. So the Easterlings have really gone for the iconic Easterling heavy infantry look. They've also brought some Variag Maulers, who are a 200 axe unit, but they've also got bows, so a nice little hybrid unit there. Dragon's Wrath, who are, I believe, a bow and shock cavalry unit, but they do lack shields. So unlike the Dragon's Wrath Warlords in Reforged, these guys are reasonably vulnerable to arrows, so they do have some heavier armor. Now in front, we've got some Variag Shield Bearers, and there's a lot of Variag units like this, which I think are pretty appropriate. I mean, obviously they're using assets from a medieval game, not Medieval 2, Medieval 1212, but I think they're really appropriate for the setting, and they fit, in my opinion, fairly seamlessly into the world, so that is, that's pretty good. And then we got the General's Bodyguards out here in front, just enjoying a little bit of a pool party, a little bit of a parlay here. So a 3rd unit of Dragon's Wrath. Warlords, some Lances of the Serpent for Harad. They're going to be chilling out here with Blood Magpie's general, who's going to be playing as the Dunlendings. And he's brought a unit of Eisenmark Wardens, who are Spear Cavalry, so anti-cavalry cavalry. And he's got Dunlending Slingers as well, so you get some Slingers in this mod, which is a pretty cool thing to see. I don't think I've seen a mod with Slingers in it since, well, Reforged added Hobbit Slingers, but I haven't seen it really in any big, meaningful way since Rome 1, so it's kind of cool to have it back in the battlefield. A couple units there of the Dunlending Slingers, some Watch Post entries. That's from Dale, so let's focus on the Dunlending units for now. Hillmen Bloodsworn, who are a bunch of unwashed barbarians that use boards pulled out of the bottom, like the floorboards of houses, for shields. Dunlending Huntsman, so a light javelin skirmish unit. I got some Hillmen Headhunters, so some medium kind of bowmen. A little bit more heavily armored than, I think, a unit like the Dunlending Slingers, but still not really all that famed for their armor. Over here we got some Wolf Hunters, who use some of the Uruk-hai assets blended with, I believe, some assets from 1212 and maybe even from Attila itself. And altogether they make this really nasty-looking two-handed Berserker unit, so cool to see them on the battlefield. Over here we have some Dunlending Axemen, a lighter axe unit, but they make up for their lower kind of armor values with just being ferocious and having a lot of men in the unit. Hillmen Headhunters, yet more Hillmen Headhunters, and then we move into some of the more heavily armored units, which are quite rare for Dunlend. Again, using some of the Uruk-hai assets. Got some Dunherd Champions, a solid kind of anvil unit. And we got some Hillmen Headhunters, yet more Hillmen Headhunters, and I think we've got a unit of... I think this is some... No, that's my cavalry. We've got some pikemen. They're hiding around here somewhere, but they're like Dunherd Gatemen or something like that, and they are heavily armored pike unit. Ah, here we go. Here they are. Dunherd Gatekeepers. One of the few heavily armored units that Dunlend can really bring to bear. Obviously armed by Isengard, they have those iconic Uruk-hai pikes. And yeah, I think that does it for Blood Magpie's armor. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what Dale has brought to the battle. He's got some Merchant Escorts here, 3 units of the Merchant Escorts, and they're going to be melee cavalry, so they're very useful at fighting other cavalry. They tend to have a little bit higher melee defense, so you can use them as kind of mobile infantry as well. Watch Post Sentries. And back here we got some Northmen Scouts, so this is a scout unit, so quite lightly armored, but useful for scouting out terrain and things like that. Attila is actually really cool in that regard. If you can't see a unit with line of sight from one of your units, then you can't see it at all. So scout units actually have a really important purpose in an army. Got some Lake Town Wardens here, looking real sexy, very iconic from the Hobbit movies. They're actually a hybrid unit, so they're medium infantry, and they are also bowmen, so that's kind of cool. Got some Dalian Swordsmen in here for the heavy infantry pick for Dale. We got some shipmen, and I think this is just like medium infantry. It says heavy, but honestly they look medium to me. Urban Volunteers, so some militia. Got some more shipmen, yet more shipmen. Everyone's kind of in the process of moving into position right now, so it's a little bit jumbled. Got some Vineland Yard Patrollers who look very similar to the Northmen look from Game of Thrones, which I think is really cool. Watchful sentries here as well to defend them up front. And yet more Vineland Yard Patrols. And I think that does it for most of Dale's army. Got some more Vineland Yard Patrols over here. So a lot of bows, as you'd expect from Dale. Really playing up that the natural strength of a faction like Dale that is very archery focused. More Dalian Swordsmen, and I think that does it for those two factions. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at my army. And I am going to be playing as Gondor, which I know is a lot of people's like fan favorite kind of pet faction, and they're very, very strong, in my opinion, in this in Rise of Mordor and with this submod. And I've got 3 units of Gondor cavalry, and they're heavy spear cavalry, so good against other cavalrymen. I've also got a unit of Anfilas Coast Levies, which is a javelin unit. Got a couple companies of Pinithgalen Spearmen, who are really sexy, and actually I was surprised by how well they performed, to be honest. I got a lot of Gondor sword infantry, so like 5 or 6 companies of them. Another company there of the Pinithgalen Spearmen. My strategy is to use them to break up charges, so if the Uruk-hai come at me with all this half-orc access, for example, and the AP that they have, well, then my Pinithgalen Spearmen can take that on the chin instead of my more important Gondor sword infantry. I've also got a unit of Wardens of the White Tower, which is, I believe, inspired by the unit in DAC and Third Age Reforged, so that's kind of cool. A little bit of crossover kind of fan fiction there. And yeah, in front I've got 4 units of the Gondor Bow Militia, who are extremely useful. I have found they rout fairly easily, as you would expect from militia units, but in high numbers they can be very, very dangerous indeed. And I think that just about does it for my army. It's just mostly Gondor sword infantry, and yeah, that pretty much does it. So that's it for the army comps. Let's go ahead and jump into the replay. I hope you guys enjoy. Now, this battle begins with a very lengthy skirmish phase. There's a lot of very deliberate movement that's going on here, so let's talk about some of it. Over here, you can see the Dunlending mounted skirmishers moving forward to threaten the heavily armored merchant escorts, and naturally the Dale player does not want anything to do with that fight whatsoever, so he's going to pull back. He's also, what do we have over here? Some Uruk-hai pursuers? What is this? I think this is a dog unit that was hiding from Blood Magpie, which I actually didn't see until this moment. I didn't realize when I was playing through this game that he had a unit like this. So that's kind of cool, and it freaked me out a little bit. Like, how did they get behind them? In any case, so the Dunlending skirmishers are actually going to be driven back in a hail of arrow fire from Dale. They kind of overextended a little bit here, maybe overestimating their chances. They did manage to bully the Dalish cavalry back out of position, but yeah, they definitely had a bit of a close call there, getting well within range of a lot of the Dalish skirmishers, and actually some of them are going to pay the price for it. Well, five out of those 80 or so Dunlending units have actually fell. Now over here on Rune's side, they are threatening the red team's right wing with a pretty strong self-contained infantry force. Well, it's a mixed force. They've got Dragon's Wrath. I want to call them Warlords, but I'm just going to call them Dragon's Wrath because that's what it's supposed to be. But they've got Dragon's Wrath heavy shot cavalry, which are also bowmen. They've got some spearmen in the front who are very, very solid, well-trained units that aren't going to run in a hurry, with some decent numbers, and they're useful for warding off any cavalry assaults from my Gondor heavy cavalry. But he's also got the couple companies of the Variag Maulers as well, who are nasty shock infantry with a lot of AP damage to it, and they're also archers. So this is a big commitment here, and one that my forces are not generally very prepared to deal with. I can deal with the cavalry well enough, but my infantry, I do worry about their chances, especially given that my only really strong infantry units out on this wing are, well, if you can call them really strong, are my Peneth Galen spearmen, and they're going to be backed up by not a mercenary company, a militia company of Anfalas Coast levies. So, yeah, it's a bit of a scary situation over there on the red team's right wing. Yeah, so far it's just kind of trading back and forth a little bit. I think there's, yeah, you can see the skirmish fight now beginning to go off. The Haradwaith bowmen firing into the Dunlending skirmishers, who I find, at least the way that I've seen Blood Magpie play Dunland a lot, they really thrive when you combine all of these skirmishers together. You move up with your infantry, you are aggressive as you can possibly be in a skirmish fight, and you use your Dunlending slingers in their great numbers to use archer ammunition or to deal some pretty serious damage to enemy archer companies. And then, of course, you've got your own companies in reserve that you can do quite a lot with. So this Dunlending army is actually quite strong, in my opinion, at least in the skirmish side of things. But over here, I've actually moved forward with some of my units as well, trying to support my ally. Gondor Bow Militia getting themselves into position. We're going to begin to trade blows here with the Dragonfire. And that's not going to be a fun fight for my Gondor Militia, although with their mass volley fire, they will be able to do at least a reasonable amount of damage to these more expensive archers. And any damage that we can do to them really is a boon, because these are very expensive, very deadly units. I think they're also decent enough in melee as well after the fact. So yeah, we want to try and do as much damage for them. Trade our militia archers, if possible, to cripple these units of Dragon's Fire. Over here, the Variags moving forward slowly but surely. From what I understand, it is a very good idea to be aggressive with the evil factions in this game, because you have a lot more numbers, and especially the evil men. The evil men have skill and damage that rivals that of the Kingdoms of Men from the west, but the western factions tend to have a lot stronger skirmish units. So engaging in a skirmish fight like this against my Gondor Militia might not be the best way to play as the Easterlings, but that's just from what I understand from talking to people and experience and things like that. Dragon's Fire now coming together strangely enough, abandoning their loose formation, which is really going to play into my hands here, and that delay is going to cost them, actually. The delay for having to reform and then reposition themselves is going to lend themselves to getting shot down quite efficiently by my bowmen. One more volley, come on, let's see this. Come on. Nope, nothing. That's alright. Oh, there we go. I'm actually managing to do a fair amount of damage to the Dragon's Fire. I'm trying to focus fire them with my Gondor archers, right, with my militia archers rather, because I know that they're of much inferior quality. I need to make my numbers count while I can. And if I have to trade my entire skirmish line to cripple, or to kill 2 units and then maybe cripple the other 2 in a short period of time, then I will definitely take that trade any day of the week. Let's see what we got going on over here. A little bit of inching forward here by the Watchpost sentries. Not a extremely strong unit, but they are hidden here, and then will be a useful ace in the hole, and going to be obviously very important for trying to zone out some of the faster moving units here and providing any support to the cavalry that they may need. And of course, if the blue team forgets those spear units are there, if they didn't see them move up as well, then they might find themselves caught in a bit of a trap here, especially if these Dunlending horse riders move too far forward. They could end up getting caught on the spears of those Watchpost sentries. So that could be a nice thing for them indeed. Over here in the center, Uruk-hai archers and the Dunlend and Dale actually going at it, and it's looking like it's definitely in favor of Dale. There's a lot of dead Uruk-hai archers along the grounds here. But I think possibly they're getting a little bit of support from Dunlend as well. Over in the center, the Hrodwraith bowmen are actually taking quite a beating. I am lending a little bit of support to my ally as well when at all possible. And yeah, I'm also helping to focus fire down some of the Hrodwraith bowmen. And our strategy really was to win the skirmish fight and to make them come to us. Yeah, that was very much the crux of our approach to this battle, because we are actually a little bit outnumbered, as you can see, by about nearly 1,000 men, so that's a pretty significant amount of soldiers in Attila. Meanwhile, the Easterlings moving forward, you can actually see the Variag Maulers getting themselves into a good firing position where they can fire into the Dunherd Gatekeepers, who are not having a great time. Blood Magpie is actually going to pull them back and yeah, try and get them out of harm's way. Maybe he'll have an opportunity to well, let me just say this. If you suddenly move back units and your opponents aren't paying attention, the archer units will actually chase, and there's a possibility they will overextend themselves. So tactical retreats like that and feigned retreats are actually really useful in this kind of game. Mostly because units are a lot more responsive. I mean, you could do that in Medieval too, but I find in Attila units are a lot more responsive and move a lot faster and take less time to move and reform. So tactical retreats and feigned retreats are actually a lot more of a viable tactic in Attila than they are in Medieval 2, for example. But let's see what we got going on over here. Dunlands, oh, they're poor skirmishers are really taking a beating here from basically the combined skirmish might of Herod, with a little bit of help from the Uruk-hai. But that is fine. Dunland has actually done a fair amount of damage here, as you can see, to the Herodum. They've definitely given as good as they got. And Dunland still has a lot of archers as well. And those slingers are, of course, going to reform, and now Dunland's going to be able to resume putting pressure on the Herodum in the center. What do we got going on over here? Ooh. Dunlending skirmishers moving forward, trying to harass the Lake Town units as they move forward. Lake Town Dale is actually going to be really aggressive here. They've massed their cavalry, a lot of infantry as well, over on the far left red team wing, and they're going to try and use that, I think, to smash their enemies on the flanks. And if you look at our deployment here, let's kind of slow it down just a little bit because there's a lot going on right now. If you look at our deployment, we have really massed a fair amount on our wings, but we've left our center lines with mostly kind of a holding force, but there is a lot of killing power there on that wing. And again, this plays into our strategy. Win the skirmish fight, try and make our enemies come to us, and smash them on the flanks, if at all possible. Although, of course, Dale's going to be a little bit more aggressive there, because I would say that he has the advantage. He's got a lot of infantry, he's got a lot of skirmishers and things like that nearby that he can use to quite great effect. You can see Lake Town Wardens here putting a lot of fire into the front of, I think this is actually the Herodrum. And yeah, actually a fair amount of Herodrum infantry over here, and the Uruk-hai as well. There you go. Let's kick it back into full speed. Dunland still in the center, skirmishing as much as they can with Herod, trying to, and the Uruk-hai as well, trying to kill as many of them as possible. And because these Uruk-hai are so bunched up like this, actually 3 companies basically all together in the center, that makes them fairly easy prey for any incoming skirmish fire. And it seems like the Isengard player has actually realized that, and now he's going to try and straighten out his lines a little bit, which is a good idea. Meanwhile, things have been pretty quiet over here. I am actually shifting some of my skirmishers from my center over to my wing to try and counteract this the flanking pressure here from the Easterlings, trying to do as much damage to the Variag Mollusk as I can. Definitely a priority target for me. I can use my cavalry to really great effect against the Dragon's Wrath. I want to call them Warlords again. Just the Dragon's Wrath. And so I'm not worried about winning a cavalry fight, but the skirmish fight does have me a little bit nervous, especially with my militia javelins over here. We are very, very light on skirmishing fire on our right wing, and in the center all of our forces are occupied, and we're starting to get a little bit low on ammo. So the fact that they have so many able skirmishers over here is definitely a big problem for a lot of my forces. Ooh, look at this, actually burned down one of the I love the fire effects in Attila. Let's just take a moment and enjoy this. And they actually have some tactical consequences on the battlefield. You don't want to leave your forces in the fire. They can die, they can lose morale, things like that. So yeah, something to keep in mind. Dunland moving forward now with their Hillman Marauders. The Uruk-hai firing a withering hail of arrows into these lightly armored Dunland units. They are still backed up, however, by some decent skirmishers here, some Dunherd Beast Slayers, which is like a heavier bow unit. And the skirmish fight is looking like it is very much in the favor of the red team at the moment. Haradrim Swordsmen kind of getting caught up in this, but I think they're actually hidden right now. One of the big benefits to this unit is that they can hide almost anywhere. But I think maybe the Warlords of the Umbar enforcers are getting shot at right now. Or maybe they're just getting caught up in the skirmishing duel here between the Haradwith Bowmen and the Dunlanders. Well, let's see what's going on over here. So it seems like Dale is moving farther and farther forward. They really want to pick an infantry fight, and or an infantry and a cavalry fight, and they've got the tools to win it. Absolutely. Southbound Cavalry here. I think they've got bows. Oh, they do have bows. What do you know? Firing into the Watchpost sentry is not really doing a whole lot to them, however. The shielded units from the front are going to do just fine. With this infantry wedge, however, I think this gives them a bonus versus infantry, but it's not the best thing to use against cavalry. The merchant escorts charging in there against the Haradwith champions, actually doing a fair amount of damage. The Haradwith champions are going to take that on the chin, but Swords of the Serpent here charging into the Lake Town's Wardens with the support of the Spears of the Serpent. Oh, letting loose a volley of javelins. And in the infantry wedge, they are actually going to massacre the Lake Town Wardens. You're going to start to see these guys fall apart very, very quickly indeed. And this is where the infantry fight really starts to take shape. Shipmen charging in, trying to support that poor beleaguered unit of Lake Town Wards, just getting absolutely destroyed right now by the Serpent units. The Uruk-hai coming in as well. I think Dale's going to find themselves possibly biting off a bit more than they can chew. Luckily, they have some Hillmen Oathbreakers nearby to soften up that charge, which was the plan. One of the tips that Blood Magpie gave to me going into this battle was to use Spearmen to try and blunt the charges of the half-orc axes. And then keep your more heavily armored units like the Lake Town Wardens or some of the Dunherd units in reserve to follow up the charge of the half-orc axes and to try and destroy them. Because they have quite low melee defense from what I understand. White Hand Stormers charging in to the Lake Town Wardens. I would imagine that would go to the White Hand Stormers. Over here in the center, the Uruk-hai Phalanx moving forward here in this tortoise formation. Testudo, that's what it is. And they're moving in on the rest of the Dalish infantry, and this is really looking not great for Dale. They're kind of hard pressed at the moment. Over here, the Haradrim Swordsmen actually running into a bit of a wall here. The Hillmen Bloodsworn are no joke, and with the support of some of the remaining skirmishers, that's not going to be a fun fight for them. Sword of the Serpent moving in to try and pick up the slack left over by the Haradrim Swordsmen. Over here, the Dunherd's champions are really giving it to a unit of Haradrim Swordsmen, who I think got focus fired down a fair amount by some of my own archers earlier on in the game, so they're not going to perform nearly as well as they might have otherwise. The Runic infantry actually losing to my Gondorians because I put a lot of them into wedge formation before I charged them in, so they are in a wedge formation right now, so they're getting a big bonus to their attack and melee defense values. That's going to help them out quite a lot here in the fight against Rune. Meanwhile, over here, the Easterlings have finally sprung their flanking out. Do I call it a trap? I don't know. It's just definitely a surprise kind of lightning assault here, and I'm going to pop my cavalry units into their wedge formation, flying wedge, to try and deal with some of these Easterling cavalry, and we're actually going to catch them off guard here. So the Dragon's Wrath Warlord's going to take a big charge from the front by my spear cavalry. So Rune's going to be in a lot of trouble here. especially in terms of the cavalry fight. Gondor cavalry are no joke. It looks like the Cav was trying to go for my Anfilas coast levies. Yes, that's it. But I'm not going to give them the opportunity. My Anfilas coast levies they do get kind of cut off for a little bit, but they get pulled out fairly quickly. The Dunland units moving forward against these Variag shield bearers, and unsupported, the wolf hunters and the gatekeepers are going to be a nasty, nasty 1-2 punch against these very thin on the ground spear units. Now over here, infantry fight, got some Variag maulers trying to help out the Dragon's Wrath warlords against my cavalry, but my cavalry are actually winning quite handily at this point. Over here you can see some pike units have now moved in against the other Dragon's Wrath unit who are fighting now both the pike unit and my Gondor cavalry, and that's not going to go very well for them. So seeing that we have the situation reasonably well in hand, I'm going to use I'm actually going to fall back with some of my units. Got my Anfilas coast levies moving out of the way, and I see a big gap in the middle of our enemy lines here, and a lot of skirmishers that really are just begging to be charged down. My Gondor infantry are already engaging them, tying them down, and tying them into place. I'm going to move in with my Gondor cavalry and try and charge them down and rout a significant number of these elite bowmen. Over here, the infantry fight seems to be going reasonably well. My Wardens of the White Tower have actually been committed to try and push back. I think this is Variag Maulers, so this would be more Variag Maulers from the other side. They've been pulled out of that fight, and they're being double teamed now by my elite Gondor infantry. Over in the center, the Dragon Skin regiments just getting hammered, and a lot of that is thanks to the wedge formation. Gondor Sword Infantry over here actually losing a little bit slightly to the Dragon's Wrath Skin, or the Dragon's Wrath Skin. There's so many dragon units, I'm getting them confused and mixed up with the units from Reforged. But the Dragon Skin here managing to do reasonably well, but they are ultimately going to be surrounded. Got another company of Gondor Sword Infantry coming in from the rear, and that's going to be all she wrote for that unit. Got some Wolf Hunters in the back here, peppering the Runic units as well. And Rune's army has basically shattered on the anvil of Gondor. And yeah, very, very deadly infantry units for Gondor, and the Flying Wedge helped out so much. So blue team's going to respond with the commitment of some cavalry here, some very high morale. Lances of the Serpent moving in, and they're going to try and go, I think they're going to go after the Wolf Hunters. Probably that would be the obvious unit to go for. All those poor Wolf Hunters getting pancaked. The Gondorians going to charge into the aid of their allies, try and tie down the Lance of the Serpent, do as much damage to them as possible. Got my Gondor cavalry over here chasing down a unit of Dragon's Wrath. Just Dragon's Wrath. I want to call them Warlords. You know what? I'm going to call them Warlords. Forget it. They're Dragon's Wrath Warlords from now on. And I'm trying to chase them off and get them away from my bow militia. We're tying down here a unit of Haraz Wraith Warlords who are very, very low on number indeed. Over on this side, Dale is really getting hammered quite badly by the combined arms of the Uruk-hai, and I believe there's some Haradrim units mixed in here as well. And poor Dale's infantry is just really not up to the task of dealing with some of these really elite Uruk-hai units. They are holding reasonably well right here in their center, but they are very much in danger of being outflanked by a group of White Hand Stormers. And over here, the very bold flanking maneuver from Dale unfortunately has been shut down. That's going to leave a lot of cavalry and infantry free up now to roll up the rest of Dale's line. So they're in a lot of trouble here, and it's going to be either stand your ground and try and kill as many of your enemies as possible, or fall back with some of your more important assets and try and reform and help out the rest of your team. A couple units, actually a number of really strong cavalry units still left over here, and it looks like Dunland at least is going to pull out of this fight, and maybe some of these cavalry units that I mentioned are going to get pulled back as well. And we got here, Dunherd Champions. Ooh. Can it be? Oh, they're really putting the hurt in the Uruk-hai infantry. A little bit of a lapse in micro here by the Uruk-hai player. Got a lot of assets just kind of sitting around that could be doing more useful things. But now finally, Isengard is coming like a wrecking ball to the rear of Dale's forces. And that is going to be all she wrote for the remaining men of Dale, who are being swiftly surrounded and isolated and torn to shreds by the vicious Uruk-hai. But now that we've managed to destroy the Easterlings, my army is now free to move in to the aid of my fellows over there on our left wing. But we've got a lot of cavalry here left to deal with. Eisenmach Spear Wardens coming in from the rear against a unit here of the Harad Wraith Warlords. And they're going to do really well for themselves, being Spear Cavalry. But I'm coming in as well with some Spearmen. I'm going to try and sandwich this unit of Harad Wraith Warlords. It looks like a little bit of a micro-lapse here on my parts momentarily, but ultimately my Spearmen are going to be able to charge into the rear of those Harad Wraith Warlords, and that's going to be an important asset for the blue team that gets wiped out here. More Harad Wraith Warlords moving in, but my Flying Wedge Gondor Cavalry are going to be able to deal with them quite well. Another company of Eisenmach wards coming in from the rear. Beautiful teamwork here on the part of Blood Magpie and, dare I say it myself, we really came together and destroyed some nasty units that the Herod had sent forward as kind of a vanguard to maybe go after some of my archers and some of our squishier units. So we managed to take down some important enemy units there, which is a big win for us. Meanwhile, the rest of my infantry companies reforming, trying to get themselves into some semblance of order, and being supported by my few remaining archer units. Some of them still have ammunition, I think. I could be wrong about that. The Lending Huntsmen, what are they going after? Not sure what they were throwing the javelins at, but I think they skewered some of my Gondor cavalry. A little bit unfortunate. My two victorious companies of Gondor cavalry from the fight with Rune have now been brought to bear against the remaining forces of Isengard and their allies. And I've still got some more reserves coming in as well. Some heavy Gondor spear infantry. I think there might maybe be some units that escaped our attention. Yeah, there's a few units out on the wings rather, but you can see a company here of Dragon's Fire that managed to get themselves out of the wreck of Rune's army, but Blood Magpie is on top of it. Eisenmark Wardens charging down that unit. They're going to let loose a volley of fire arrows, try and kill as many of them as possible, but it is not going to be enough. These guys are beleaguered beyond hope. Let's enjoy this. Dragon's Fire Regiment taking a big charge from the front, and they're going to get absolutely massacred. And I think I see this. I'm going to come in with a couple units of my Gondor cavalry just to make sure that this unit is put down for good. And now that the fight on the wings has kind of been finished off, we're going to be able to move in with our infantry in the center. Although I'm being a little bit passive here, which is mostly due to the fact that I've seen units rout really easily in Attila, so when you think you are going to win, there are a lot of mechanics that go on. It's a very complicated game, and sometimes you end up putting yourself in a bad situation. So if I'm being overly cautious here, it's just because of my previous experience. But yeah, we definitely have a strong numbers advantage, and definitely an overwhelming cavalry advantage over the remaining forces of mostly Isengard, a little bit of Herod mixed in there as well, some Spears of the Serpent and things like that. But yeah. Throwing away those two units of Herod Wraith Warlords early on definitely hurt their chances a lot more, but I think ultimately we would have had the advantage in either case. So let's go ahead and let's fast forward here just a little bit so we can get past my timid phase here while I wait for the rest of my army to join me and move in a position of strength. And there you have it. So all of our cavalry, all of our infantry moving in at the same time. We're kind of stretching out the enemy's lines a little bit. The threat of our cavalry is going to pull some of their spear infantry here, this very healthy unit of Spears of the Serpent, out of the infantry fight in the center, which can only play to our advantage, of course. Very few cavalrymen left on the field. There's not really a whole lot that they can do to try and stop us. So let's go ahead. We'll fast forward just a little bit more here. Looks like I'm kind of stopping and reforming, and again, being more cautious than I really need to be in this kind of situation. But that's me. To a T, I'm a very cautious player unless you catch me on a day that I like to play a rush army. But let's go ahead, take them to normal speed here. Dunland Cavalry trying to countercharge. So we got Swords of the Serpent here catching the Dunherd Keepers in a bad position. They're going to actually butcher them like crazy. But unfortunately for these guys, for the Swords of the Serpent, there's some Dalish units still left over, some Dunherd Beast Slayers, and of course my Pineth Galen Spearmen all moving in together to wipe out that unit. And in the center, I'm going to use my my archers here to blunt the charge of the half-orc axis so they don't do any damage to my Gondor infantry. I'm going to follow that up with an infantry wedge. Okay, got some Pineth Galen Spearmen. I'm going to leave them kind of in the position that they are in right now, just just to avoid getting surrounded by the White Hand Stormers and these Spears of the Serpent, both of whom are reacting to my Gondor cavalry right now. Over on this side, our forces are managing to fairly swiftly overwhelm the remaining Dunlending horsemen, and that's going to leave the White Hand Guardians to stand alone against a sea of enemies. My Pineth Galen Spearmen coming in from the rear as well, and the White Hand Guardians are going to be in a real bad way. Wolf Hunters coming in from the flank with that AP. Oh man, these poor White Hand Guardians. They're standing up reasonably well. I've actually got my Gondor cavalry in there as well, trying to deal some damage with their shock kind of value. They have a decent charge. And ultimately, at this point, we don't really have to try too hard to beat our enemies. Dunlending Horse Raiders here charging into the rear of my Gondor Sword Infantry, actually doing a fair amount of damage, but they'll be quickly repulsed by those heavily armored Gondorian warriors. And over in the center, The remaining White Hand Stormers are being quickly destroyed by my Gondor infantry. Got some cavalry over here that's mixed in. I got some White Hand Stormers that have run afoul of my Gondor cavalry. The Haradrim player going to try and come in from the rear against the Gondorian cavalry, which is not a bad idea with a spear unit. But I'm swift enough to react here that I will be able to bring in some infantry. Pinneth Galen Spearmen going to hold those spears in place. Infantry wedge going into the flank of those White Hand Stormers. That's going to be real ugly for them. That's going to rout them quite quickly and allow me to quickly encircle the Spears of the Serpent, or at the very least rout them until they actually start to rout and shatter. This is going to be the end of the battle here. Instead, the White Hand Stormers have been overwhelmed, and the Isengard General is really the only one left on the field, and they're going to start to rout. Pardon me. And with that, that's going to be the end of our replay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the post-battle stats here. Pardon me, guys. I've been talking a lot today. I did a lot of recording, so I'm a little bit hoarse. The Isengard army just did work. Look at those White Hand units. We're also getting kills in the triple digits. The half-orc axes, nasty units indeed. The Uruk-hai archers really were used well. And the Dunlending Horse Raiders surprisingly got a ton of kills. I don't know how that happened. I think I kind of missed that. Opposite them, Dunland doing very, very well indeed. A lot of their Dunherd units just massacred people. The Dunherd Gatekeepers were they didn't get a lot of kills, but they were a useful zoning out tool. So even if they didn't get a lot of damage done, well, still, they did something. A lot of kills there from the Dunlendings as well. And let's take a look at the next couple of armies. The very small but very elite Runic army was quite swiftly overwhelmed by my infantry. I really had the advantage there using the Flying Wedge, which the Runic player was not using. And his Dragon's Wrath, this one unit, Dragon's Wrath of Warlords, though, I don't know how they got 314 kills, but damn, they did some serious work. The other two units got shut down pretty early by my Spear Cavalry, and there wasn't a whole lot that he could do about that. The Dragon's Wrath Bowmen got a lot of kills as well, mostly on skirmishers. My infantry, though, damn, look at that. Gondor infantry, absolute tanks in combat. Really did a lot of damage against first the Easterlings, and then later on the Isengarders. Bowmen doing really well as well. My two units these are the units on my left wing, closest to my left wing. Got a lot of work done. These other two units got focus fired down, but I was able to use them on my right wing to try and repel some of the Variag bow axe units, which is a nice thing to have. My Gondor cavalry, I was so pleased with how they performed. With that Flying Wedge against other cavalry, they just did so much work. Now let's take a look now at the final two armies there. Can we take a look at the Haradrim army? I think we already looked at Cassius's army. Yeah, we definitely did. So there we go. Anubis. A lot of kills. Like, everybody did really well in this game, but ultimately, I think the amount of forces that I had left at the end of the battle, being able to swiftly destroy the Runic army, which was far, far numerically inferior to my own, that was what really sealed the deal for the blue team. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this little divergence from our regularly scheduled 30H programming. Rise of Mordor is an amazing mod, and Blood Magpie's submod really adds a lot to the game. It adds a lot in terms of balance and a lot in terms of unit rosters, and even a bunch of new factions as well. So definitely worth checking out. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I will see you guys next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye!